Hello and welcome, everyone, joining another SAG-AFTRA program on YouTube. To stay current with all of our video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel, which you can even do right now. Today, as always, we are joined by American Sign Language interpreters, Lindsay Gibbons and Mara Bassani Santamaria. As a reminder, today's program is being recorded, so you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with a ton of other great content. Today, the PTEOE, President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement, brings you a special presentation on a hot topic in today's age of streaming: calculating HBSVOD residuals. For those not familiar, that acronym stands for High Budget Subscription Video on Demand programs. Think Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and the like. We've been seeing the continuing trend of Hollywood shifting more and more of its content to streaming services in the last few years, which has created tremendous opportunities for SAG-AFTRA members. It has also produced a lot of confusion for performers trying to figure out how much compensation they should receive in residuals for HBSVOD. So we are taking the guesswork out of it for you with the help of SAG-AFTRA Executive Director, Contract Enforcement and Strategy, Jennifer Godfrey. In the 17 years that Jennifer has been with SAG-AFTRA, she has worked tirelessly, spending countless hours scouring streaming agreements and contracts to ensure that SAG-AFTRA members get the residuals they are owed, and her indefatigable efforts have been an absolute gift to our members. Jennifer has packed everything you need to know into a brief presentation so you don't have to spend hours searching for information on residuals like you would if you were trying to find something to watch on a streaming service. So, Jennifer, over to you.
Thanks so much, Ben. And this is going to be a lot of detail in a short amount of time, but hopefully it helps to demystify it a little bit, even if it still seems like calculating this yourself is a little bit of a challenge. So we can bring up the presentation to get started and jump right to the first slide. So before getting into residuals, I think it's always important to understand what exactly type of production we're talking about and what your initial compensation is going to cover. So a high budget SVOD production is one that is a scripted dramatic picture or episode, so a drama or a sitcom signed to the television agreement terms. It needs to be at least 20 minutes long. For animation, that can be 2 10-minute segments that are exhibited together as one episode. It needs to reach the applicable high budget threshold based on the length of the picture or the episode. And as Ben said, has its initial and ongoing release on an SVOD platform such as Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Peacock, Max, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and so on. So high budget SVOD residuals will be due each year that the picture or episode continues to be available on that initial release SVOD platform. And first, you need to determine which quarter the start of your exhibition year is in. That means when was the first day after that 90 days or 1 year that your initial comp covered. And then residuals are due with the quarterly reporting for that quarter. So quarterly reporting is based on calendar quarters, with residuals due to SAG-AFTRA within 60 days after the end of the quarter. So the first quarter, January to March, is due before May 31st. The second quarter, April to June, is due before August 30th. The third quarter, July to September, is due before November 30th. And the fourth quarter, October to December, is due before March 2nd. So that's where we're going to start. Now let's get into calculating. Go to the next slide. So to calculate high budget SVOD residuals, you need to understand certain terms first. The first is total actual compensation, or TAC, which isn't quite what it sounds like. It's the compensation paid for working on a picture or an episode that would include your agent's commission, any adjustments such as for stunts or extra voices under animation, or step outs and sweetening for singers. It also includes overtime, but included at straight time. So if your overtime was paid at time and a half or double time, for purposes of TAC, it's calculated at straight time. As an example, $200 at double time would add $100 to your TAC. Penalties and fees, such as a rest period violation, meal penalty, per diem, do not get included. It's just compensation. And TAC gets capped at various ceilings, which are tied to the length of the program, half hour, 1 hour, and so on, and to the dates of principal photography. So as an example, the 1 hour ceiling under the 2014 high budget SVOD terms was $3,668. That went up to $3,851 under the 2017 agreement. It's increased twice under the 2020 agreement to where it's currently at $4,451. So if your compensation for an episode or picture exceeds the applicable ceiling, your residuals are calculated on that ceiling amount. And in case there are any stunt coordinators watching, right now, stunt coordinators only get residuals where they're based on a percentage of distributors' gross that is shared pro rata by the entire cast, not these sort of fixed residuals we're about to talk about. So a stunt coordinator would have to do an on-camera stunt and then get residuals as a stunt performer. The one exception to that would be a high budget SVOD production being done under our Netflix agreement. So for Netflix productions, we achieved high budget SVOD residuals for stunt coordinating contracts, but residuals are based on the 1 day rate rather than on the total actual compensation for all coordinating services. But that was a breakthrough. It's the first fixed residual for stunt coordinators. So once you've determined your total actual compensation, that number gets adjusted based on the platform's subscriber factor. In 2014, there were 2 subscriber factors. In 2017, the number of subscriber factors was increased to 5, which is still the case today. And those are tied to domestic, not worldwide, subscribers. So the lowest subscriber factor is 20% for platforms with fewer than 1 million domestic subscribers. Then it doubles that up to 40% for platforms with 1 to 5 million domestic subscribers. Then it goes up to 65% for platforms with over 5 million but under 20 million domestic subscribers. It's at 100% for platforms with 20 to 45 million domestic subscribers, and 150% for platforms with over 45 million domestic subscribers. So as a platform grows, the subscriber factor changes and residuals go up. Hulu, as an example, started off with a subscriber factor of 65%, but today it's at 150%. Subscriber factors are set each year as of July 1st. So the domestic subscribers as of July 1 each year determines the subscriber factor for a platform, and it's applicable to productions done that year. So you need to be thinking about the subscriber factor based on dates of principal photography, not when the production gets exhibited. And it sort of sticks to that production from then on. TAC to the applicable ceiling, adjusted by the subscriber factor, is then what is used to calculate domestic SVOD residuals on that platform each year from then on. Residuals are paid on a descending percentage of your adjusted TAC. Under the 2020 agreement, 45% of TAC is due for the first year, and that eventually gets down to 1.5% for year 13, and stays at 1.5% for each year thereafter. Additional residuals are also due for exhibition on foreign SVOD platforms. For those really large platforms that are getting worldwide rights, worldwide SVOD rights, and exhibiting it on their related and affiliated platforms around the world, under the 2020 terms, your foreign residuals will be 35% of the domestic residual each year. But if the platform doesn't have that large worldwide footprint, then residuals will be 3.6% of distributors' gross receipts, that meaning sort of the license value or the revenue attached to that distribution, and that's shared pro rata by the cast. So let's take a look at a couple of example calculations on the next slide. So this first one is a half-hour show for Netflix. Let's say it started production in the spring of 2020, which would mean the terms of the 2017 TV agreement are applicable. Residuals would be paid based on a percentage of 150% of TAC, which would be $2,707 for any performer whose compensation is at or above that ceiling. And under the 2017 terms, the first year residual was 35% of TAC. So you can see the amounts for both domestic and international exhibition on Netflix. Again, you calculate the domestic first. The foreign is 35% of the domestic number, which means performers with TAC at or above $2,707 would get $1,918.59 as their first residual. A day player who is working for scale plus 10 would get $764.03 under the scenario that's set out here. So let's take a look at another example on the next slide. So this would be a 2020 TV agreement. It works exactly the same way, but this is a 1-hour episode under the current agreement. So the applicable ceiling that caps TAC is higher, and the first year residual is now 45% of TAC rather than 35%. So for this example, a performer at the ceiling for worldwide use that first year would get $4,055.98. And a day player working for scale plus 10 would get $1,090.58. So the day player, even though the calculation is the same, they're not hitting the ceiling. The day player is getting higher residuals in this example compared to the previous one because scale went up between the dates of principal photography under the first example and this one. And also the percentage of TAC due for that first year went from 35% to 45%. So those are our good example calculations to give you an idea. And on the next slide, it's just a quick reminder of what you need as far as to meet the conditions to be a high budget SVOD production. If all of these conditions are not met, the residuals are going to be 3.6% of distributors' gross. So for example, if a show started off made for Netflix, was exhibited on Netflix, and then later on got exhibited on Disney Plus, you'd stop getting these fixed TAC-based residuals, and it would be a 3.6% of distributor gross where everybody shares in the pool. And then don't forget that the applicable ceiling and subscriber factor are based on the dates of principal photography rather than on the dates of exhibition. So I think that's it for our quick little example. We can move to if there's any questions. There's also a link on this slide here. I've done a longer video if anybody wants to go check that out and we can take questions.
Thank you so much for that quick but in-depth rundown. We do have a couple questions from members. Number one, how do I keep track of the residuals I'm owed?
So that just means you need to sort of see what's out there, right? So initial compensation is going to cover 90 days or 1 year. If it stays up on the platform, that's pretty easy, even if you're not subscribing to all the platforms, to at least see what's available. You can always check with us. Assuming residuals are getting paid, we have the residuals tracker. But the union, we use all sorts of monitoring services. We also do partner with the members, though. I mean, there are so many productions everywhere in the world. We need to have a good partnership with keeping track of everything and making sure it's getting paid on time.
Got it. Got it. Next question. What is the difference in pay rate between HBSVOD, high budget subscription video on demand, and SVOD, residuals?
So that's the difference between these sort of where you take a percentage of total actual compensation to a ceiling versus a pooled residual based on 3.6% of distributors' gross. And whether that's better or worse is going to depend on a lot of factors. So whenever you're trying to compare that fixed residual, where I'm getting a percentage of scale if I'm a day rate performer and that's how I worked, versus I'm getting my pro rata share of a big pool of money, depends on the value of that license, depends on the size of the cast, depends on how you were paid, what the ceiling is. There are a lot of factors that can make it sometimes better, sometimes worse, sometimes better for certain members of the cast and worse for others. There are a lot of sort of moving parts. It's really hard to characterize whether one is better than the other. The one thing about the fixed residuals is they're more predictable, right? They're tied directly to the picture being available. If it's still on the platform at the start of that quarter, they're going to have to pay that fixed residual. When you're talking about residuals that are tied to distributors' gross, they're due when revenue is paid on that production. So you could have any number of scenarios around licenses. Generally, there's some money up front. Sometimes it's received quarterly, sometimes it's received once a year, sometimes you can be a big gap in a number of years. So the predictability is definitely an advantage in those fixed residuals. But as far as whether your check is going to be larger or smaller, depends on the size of the cast, what type of performer you are, and all sorts of factors.
Last question from member here. Who do I contact if there is a problem with the way my residuals have been calculated?
So you can reach out through the contact center. They'll get you in touch with the residuals claims department, with me, with whomever else can help you. The main sort of phone number for the claims department is 323-549-6507. You can chat with the contact center. You can email residualsmail@sagaftra.org. We do find instances where somebody needed to be adjusted or was omitted, even if the rest of the cast is being paid. But hopefully this is a good sort of helpful tool to at least know how they're calculated. The trick, of course, is knowing the subscriber factor and the ceiling. And right now, that is one of those where you'd have to look in the memorandum of agreement to know the ceiling that's applicable to the dates of principal photography, because like so many things, these move. But we do track them as well. You could always ask, we can let you know whether a particular program, whether it's under the 2014, 2017, or 2020 agreement, and depending on what platform it's at, where the subscriber was during that time, subscriber factor was during that time period.
Got it. So put simply, the amount of money I'm owed in residuals for a streaming show is going to vary based on when that principal photography first began for the show and what contract had been negotiated at that time. So the more recent the show, consistently we've seen better and better residual rates for these types of programs.
Absolutely. And if we want to talk about how we determine pro rata share for those pooled residuals, we can do that I think that's part of the other video where I provided the link on the last page. But so if you want to understand pro rata share, it's there, but getting to what your check should be in that pooled residual is not easy to calculate all by yourself. You have to know the details of the whole entire cast. It's not like these residuals where if you know how you worked, how you were paid, you can determine what your TAC is.
Got it. So reaching out to the union, even the main number, to get in touch with the claims department if you think that something may be off, so that you all can, as staff, look into it and make sure. And I do want to clarify, because I've heard from members as recently as when I was on set a few weeks ago, members are owed residuals for streaming shows.
Yes, there's one exception to that. The one exception would be new media programs that are not derivative, so they're not based on an existing television program, and they are budgeted below 25,000 per minute. So these high budget SVOD residuals you're going to have due, and if it moves to a free streaming platform, their residuals due. If it's a derivative program, same thing, regardless of the budget and regardless of whether it's on a paid platform or a free platform, residuals are due. But for those original made for new media shows that are not high budget SVOD, you can have circumstances where if it's on a free to the consumer platform, there wouldn't be anything due. And if the budget is really low, under 25,000 per minute, you can also have it available on some of these paid platforms, also without residuals being due. That's becoming a smaller and smaller portion of the made for new media programs. And the majority of what the AMPTP is doing, the major studios, tend to be the higher budget. But there is still a little pocket of made for new media shows where you might not have streaming residuals. It would have to move over to television or some sort of traditional media. That's the one place where there's still a little opening as of today anyway.
Got it. So for the vast majority of the type of work that members are probably thinking about, the big shows you're seeing, your normal TV shows, those are going to have residuals. It's not as if there's no residuals for streaming shows.
Absolutely. And if it's a theatrical picture or a television picture moving over to those streaming platforms, there are always residuals going to be due. They may not pay every quarter, but there definitely that obligation exists. Same with these high budget shows. Every single year they have to pay a residual. Like I said, it's just the ones that don't really fit that category that we still haven't got all the terms we eventually hope to get to.
Well, as a final note, while we're on the topic of residuals, I would just encourage anyone who has not signed up for direct deposit of your film and TV residuals to go do so. You can find that information on the SAG-AFTRA website, sagaftra.org. I've been using it for a long time. It's so lovely. All of a sudden, boom, I've got, extra residual money popping directly into my bank. I don't have to go in physically or take a picture and do it through my phone. It just goes right to my bank account. You can set it up if you have a loan out or if you're working as an individual, and save some of those paper and stamps as well. So separate from what we're talking about in terms of calculating it, in terms of getting it into your bank account, please do go sign up for direct deposit. And you can also, if you're not familiar, there is a residuals tracker if you log in as a member to the SAG-AFTRA website or on the SAG-AFTRA app. So that can give you a little bit of a preview of the money that is headed your way at any given time. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today, helping us take the guesswork out of calculating residuals. And I'm sure managers and agents all over the country are thanking you as well. As a reminder to everyone watching, this presentation is available as a replay on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime, or take that link and send it to a friend, send it to your agents, send it to your managers. Make sure everybody's keeping an eye on the streaming residuals that you are owed. On behalf of the entire team here at SAG-AFTRA, we want to thank you for watching, and a special shout out to our regular viewers who've been tuning in each week for our PTEOE President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live streams. If you have ideas for topics you would like to see us cover, please shoot us an email at pteoe@sagaftra.org. And before we go, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel right now to get updates on all of the content we are posting.